The Gophers are moving past Iowa week and looking towards Michigan State at home. We're diving into the Michigan State Spartans and breaking them down. And then we're going to talk about these running back injuries and how much of a concern are they.
Hey,
You are Locked On Golden
no matter what
Gophers,
we're going to do here, we're just going to keep rowing.
your daily podcast on the Minnesota
Whatever
Golden
turns out, however it
Gophers.
turns out, we're just going to keep rowing.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're just going to keep rowing, and keep rowing.
What's up, y'all? You are listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week, Monday through Friday. And my goodness, the Iowa Hawkeye fans are in their feelings right now, feeling so fragile. But I clearly had some Hawkeyes fans that didn't watch the game in my mentions over on X because some of them had the audacity to say the Gophers had friendly calls all game, and that the punt return was the icing on the cake. Like, my man, did you even watch? I mean, your sole touchdown of the game was gifted by like 5 penalties. Now, 2 of those probably legitimate, but the other ones, there was a little bit of extra leeway in there. But also, Cooper DeJean drew a 15-yard penalty on a punt return where he initiated the contact. It's crazy. But you know what? Fans are mad, so we'll let him move on. The copium in Iowa City is strong, and you know what? I prefer it that way. I am glad that they're in their feelings. And now, we as Minnesota fans and Minnesota, the program, we're moving forward. We're turning our eyes towards Michigan State. And so we're going to do that here on the show as well. And we are going to break down the Michigan State Spartans. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. And right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Now, let's break down these Michigan State Spartans, a team that is struggling with off the field issues and all over the university. Mel Tucker and his players hitting the portal in the middle of the season now and showing Hitler on their scoreboard during the last game. It's a clown show out there right now in East Lansing, but this is still very much a game that Minnesota could mess around and lose if they get caught celebrating the Iowa victory too much. So when I asked Coach PJ Fleck about that Michigan State defense in yesterday's presser, he talked about what stands out to him, and it is the big physicality, and they're physically long, fast, and they will hit you. So their blitz packages, he also brought up, are pretty diverse, and he mentioned that they're playing some really good football in spurts, and they will be looking to put it all together against Minnesota. So let's start with the defense and breaking it down for Michigan State today. The defense is full of athletes, and statistically, this defense has been a big improvement from the last 2 years of Michigan State's defenses. This year, they are 84th in pass defense thus far, 31st in rush defense, 52nd in total defense, 87th in scoring defense, and then they're tied for 77th in turnovers gained and 65th in the nation in sacks averaged per game, tied with Minnesota when it comes to sacks average per game. But when you compare their total defense this year, which is 52nd, to last year in 2022, which was 101st in the nation, you can see that huge jump that the defense has taken as an overall unit. Now, last year, they were 102nd in run defense. This year, they're 31st in run defense. So there are huge strides. The year prior to that, 2021, they were literally the worst passing defense in the entire country, 131 of 131. That was the Michigan State Spartans. Last year, they got to 87th. This year, they've still made a slight improvement to 84th so far in the season. So you can see that the defense is trending in the right direction. And it's been a nice improvement for them year to year, even through all of the chaos. But let's talk about the players themselves. The secondary, it's been average. There are some key names to know, including Dylan Tatum, cornerback, who has 35 tackles and 4 pass breakups. Malik Spencer is a safety who is second on the entire team in tackles with 47 thus far. But the biggest player in that secondary, in my opinion, is Angelo Gross. Now, he is a cornerback safety. I believe he was a safety last year, but he's been playing a little bit bit of that nickel slot as well for the Michigan State Spartans, and he's pretty decent in the run fits. He's always been a good run defender, but he's been getting active in the coverage game as well this season. He has 2 interceptions, and he leads the team with 5 pass breakups, so he is definitely a player the Gophers are going to have to keep an eye on, especially probably needing the passing game this week with potential injuries in that running back room. Now, finally, the other secondary name to know is Jaden Mangham. Cornerback, he also has 2 interceptions on the year, and he's a sophomore who has stepped up well for the Spartans. Now, the linebackers and the D-line are the real strengths of this defense, in my opinion, especially that linebacker core, and that has shown itself to be a huge strength to them in that run defense that has stepped up to 31st in the nation. Now, Cal Halliday is the leader of this defense, plain and simple, leads the team with 48 tackles, has a sack, has an interception, has a fumble recovery as well. He gets it done. He does it all. He is the staple of this defense and the communicator of this defense. So Halliday is going to be a high priority player for the Gophers to keep an eye on, not for the Gophers to play for the Gophers. You got me. Anyway, we got Aaron Brule and we've got freshman Jordan Hall that are both solid linebackers to pair with him in that linebacking core. They've both been playing decently well as well this season. Aaron Brule is all over the field in that Michigan game, but I want to say that with that freshman Jordan Hall, there have been some issues and missed tackles on the season. So hopefully, if Darius Taylor or someone is injured, or not injured, if they are healthy and playing, they can maybe create some missed tackles and get some extra yardage in this game. Jacoby Windman was a player heading into the season that had high hopes for Michigan State. He had a number of sacks last season. I believe he had 6. And now this year, he gets injured after week 3, pec injury, out for the season, so that's been a big loss. Darius Snow has been injured. Vaunted freshman Pai Joby has been injured and dealt with some injuries this season, so they still have some injuries they're trying to bounce back from, but the defense overall has stepped up regardless of who has been down. Another man, next man up, has been working for them. Now, a massive blow to this defense for the Michigan State Spartans was announced yesterday, and senior Simeon Barrow Jr., who will be entering the transfer portal, so that will be a big loss for them on that interior defense, and which has helped in the run game. So hopefully maybe there will be some extra openings for Minnesota as we continue to work this week. Now, overall, flipping it to the offensive side of ball, we're looking at Caden Hauser, who is the quarterback for this team. They started out with Noah Kim for the first 4 games, and then he was replaced by Caden Hauser, redshirt freshman, highly recruited, highly vaunted freshman in last year's class, was in that Elite 11 of quarterbacks that continues to be a huge development program and shine for high school recruits coming through. He started his first game versus Rutgers, in which Michigan State was leading almost the entirety of the game. He passed for 62%, 135 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But the struggles came against Michigan. That happens with all the quarterbacks that Michigan seems to play. So overall, we don't have a really good feel of what Caden Hauser is as a starting quarterback. Now, I anticipate that he'll likely start in this one, and we'll see how much the coaching staff will allow him to pass against this Gophers secondary that has given up openings on the season. Now, Michigan State also has another highly touted true freshman behind him in Sam Leavitt. So I wouldn't expect to see him this week, but they do have some quarterback talent in that room. You kick it over to the running backs. You've got Nathan Carter. He's a transfer from UConn. He has taken over this running back room fully and completely. 130 carries, 565 yards, 4 touchdowns so far this season. This kid is shifty, he's fast, and he translated very well what he did with UConn. He's been doing with Michigan State. Now, he has home run hitting ability, though his long this season is only 44. Don't get lax. This guy has speed and shiftiness to break big ones. Now, the only other running back with a decent amount of snaps or touches to them is Jalen Berger, the transfer from Wisconsin from 2 years ago, and he's been fairly disappointing so far for Michigan State in his tenure there after large expectations coming from Wisconsin and having kind of a little bit of a breakout with the Badgers in that 2020 season. So Jalen Berger only has about 25 to 30 touches on the year so far, just over 100 yards. So I don't think he is going to be someone that will get a lot of reps. Nathan Carter is the running back to keep an eye on, and the Gophers will have to figure out a way to stop him, just like they had to stop Iowa's running attack last week. You flip it to the wide receivers, and this is where it could get interesting for the Michigan State Spartans, in my opinion, because they have been pretty spread out across the board, and that in itself is impressive. That's what we've wanted to see from this Gophers team that seemingly has the talent with Daniel Jackson, Corey Crooms, Elijah Spencer, Tristyn Spann-Ford, Krishon Bell. The list keeps going. You see all these weapons, but we haven't really been spreading the targets out and getting touches to all of our players. Michigan State, they've been doing that. And the seniors lead the way with Montori Foster and Trey Mosley both having 25 receptions each. Now, Foster has 287 yards and a touchdown so far this year. Mosley has 237 and 2 touchdowns this year. But they also have a freshman in Glover who has 12 receptions for 227 yards. And then a junior, Christian Fitzpatrick, who has 10 receptions for 183 yards. So that's 4 receivers right there that have close to 200 or more than 200 yards. 4 different options that they've spread it around to. Now, they also have Antonio Gates Jr., who I thought would be more involved in this offense, but that has not been the case so far. Regardless, this team will spread the ball around, meaning they'll definitely be looking for those openings that the secondary has presented throughout the season. So pressure is going to be huge for Minnesota in this matchup, and they're going to need that D-line to get home and create chaos quickly to keep this quarterback on his heels. Then finally, you look at the tight end, Malik Carr, mammoth of a man, similar to Tristyn Spann-Ford, both huge tight end targets. Both of them have the athleticism. The Gophers haven't been targeting theirs as much, but the Spartans have gotten theirs involved into the mix. And I believe he's 6'6", has some nice athleticism, and he's got 200 receiving yards and a touchdown to his name so far on the year. Now, the final thing you got to talk about is the big boys up front. That's the offensive line. They're fairly average across the board, nothing special. The left tackle, 51.9, below average PFF grade. J.D. Duplain, the left guard, below average at 62.9. But the center, Nick Samich, 71.6. That's above average. He's been kind of holding things together for them, especially in the ground game for Nathan Carter. And then the right guards, they've had a battle back and forth between Geno Vandermark and Kevin Widgington, who we don't know who will start for this week. My guess is that it'll be Geno Vandermark. And then finally, you got the right tackle in Spencer Brown. Average PFF grade, 67.9. So overall, hopefully that Gophers D-line can get pressure generating once again, because Minnesota has done that well lately, aside from the Michigan game. Again, Michigan being a different beast so far. But Michigan State has allowed 11 sacks on the year, the same as Minnesota, tied for 36th in the nation. Now, this game's going to be all about defense remaining to stand strong, and if it can do that in this one, then this one should play in the favor of the Minnesota Gophers at home. But we've seen this defense falter before, so hopefully growth from the young Minnesota players that we saw in key minutes last week, hopefully that growth is here to stay. Now, we're going to dive into the biggest questions that remain from Iowa week, and that's what's coming up next here at Locked On Golden Gophers. First, let's talk about the place to be when it comes to making new hiring for your small business, and that is LinkedIn Jobs, because every day these days, a new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and you want to be 100% certain you get the right person, the right match, the right fit for you. And so LinkedIn Jobs is helping you do that by finding the right people faster and for free. You can create a free job post over at LinkedIn Jobs by simply going to linkedin.com/lockedoncollege and create a free job post. It's simple, it's easy, and you can get it spreading across your network by putting a purple hiring frame on your personal profile picture so others can continue to suggest people that might be a good fit for you, on top of being open to the vast network of people all over LinkedIn. It's where I go when I need to look for a job or look for different opportunities. I am always scanning LinkedIn, so definitely head on over there. They also have simple tools like screening questions to help you get those right hires even faster. Again, post about your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Gophers fans, we're going to talk about the biggest questions for the Gophers heading out of this Iowa victory. Now, the biggest questions going out of the bye week we had on this show last week, the number one question we had was, can Minnesota refresh and revitalize this defense in the previous successes we have seen for a very key stretch of games to close out the season? Now, they kicked it off right against Iowa. We saw that 12 total yards in the second half for the Iowa Hawkeyes? Can they keep that rolling? The answer was a positive one for us, but like we said, we didn't say for that one game. We said for the key stretch of games. Well, this next one is in that key stretch. And if Minnesota wants to have a shot at winning 7 or 8 games this season, they're going to have to keep it going throughout that duration. Now, the biggest questions we have leaving the Iowa game are the following. First is the health of our key players. Zach Evans went down to injury in this last one. Darius Taylor went out of the game at some point. We're not really sure what's going on there. On top of that, you have different injuries that have been popping up left and right. Bryce Williams out for the season. That's 3 running backs in a row that I've listed right there for you that have injuries. Cody Lindenberg, we still don't know about. So can this team get healthy and remain healthy for this late stretch? Now, also, which offense is going to show up for this Gophers team? Because there were flashes in this Iowa game, especially in the second half, where Ethan looked more confident. And then there were some execution issues at times, dirting the ball, players dropping the ball. So the question becomes, can Minnesota start to stack on the good of this offense and elevate it? And like we saw running back routes, we saw routes to the running back that were successful, that were big plays for the Gophers in needed times. Can we continue to build that in? Can we run a true running back screen? This team and its preferred play style should truly be perfect for a running back screen, but the Gophers continue to refuse to add that to the offense for some reason. Hopefully, we'll see it down this back stretch of games. On top of that, some way, somehow, can we get other pass catchers going in addition to Daniel Jackson? That's going to be pertinent coming up to continue the scoring, because 12 points is not going to get it done against your Illinois, against your Michigan States, against your Wisconsins. You're going to have to score the ball more. So can we get more pass catchers going, not taking away from Daniel Jackson, but in addition to him? That's going to be huge. And can Ethan Kaliakmanis take the leap in these next 2 games at home to continue building confidence, to capitalize on some of the ones that maybe were missed in Iowa, and start putting and piecing together and building up his own confidence, his team's confidence in him, and the overall confidence of this offense for the fans? It all starts with the young quarterback. I think he can get it done. And so hopefully we'll see that progression happening in these next 2 home games. Now, flipping it to the defensive side of ball, can the defense continue creating pressure and the progress that they've had in that department? That was a key for Minnesota versus the Iowa Hawkeyes, because there were still some holes against the secondary that were present. And if that pressure wasn't there, even Deacon Hill probably would have found a way to get the ball there, like we saw in that first drive. So there was loads of pressure on Deacon Hill to influence the passer into situations that were not ideal. So hopefully we can continue to have those moving forward. The Gophers will definitely need that to continue to get wins, and it would be beneficial against Michigan State with another young, inexperienced quarterback at the helm heading into Dinkytown. Finally, can the coverage on the inside improve? The linebackers, the nickel coverage, especially when in zones, I feel like that's where the holes are starting to present openings. Can that get better? And can we not get beat over the top and let people behind the safety? We didn't see that as much in this Iowa game, but I can remember that vividly in the Louisiana game, in the Michigan game, in the Northwestern game. People were getting past our deepest safety, and that cannot happen at any level of football. So hopefully that can get cleaned up. And then the final question that I have, 2 things. First is the offensive line. Can they present cleaner opportunities for this offense? According to PFF, the run blocking for this team has only been slightly above average. If that is going to be our bread and butter, if we are going to be a running team, which it seems PJ keeps defaulting to, Harbaugh likes to get the running done as well. If that wants to trend upwards, then we need the running or the offensive line to create more holes for these running backs, especially with that room dinged up. Now, speaking of running backs being dinged up, what did we learn about the running back injuries to Zach Evans and Darius Taylor in yesterday's presser? We're going to dive into that, and what are the expectations to play Michigan State coming up next. First, I want to talk to you about our friends over at Prize Picks, because if you like daily fantasy sports, then Prize Picks is the place to be. You can test your skills on Prize Picks, and it's the NBA season. It officially kicks off tonight, so now you have even more options to get involved and turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. On top of that, they've got quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of player stat types to choose from. Simply press over or under on stat totals, and you can win up to 25 times your money. NBA starts today, and they even have a deal. I pulled it up right now where you can bet, or you can pick the stat line of Steph Curry's points tonight at 1/2. 0.5, which means if you hit over, all he has to do is score 1 point and you're getting a victory on that one. So if you pick that one along with 4 others, you can win up to 25 times your money. If you don't want to take a shot on 4 different lines, you can do it with 2 players, 3 players, you name it. You've got Steph Curry's points on 0.5. I would definitely take the over there. Nikola Jokic kicks it off tonight as they look to defend their championship, and his points line is 26.5 points. I like that line for Nikola Jokic, but what I like even better is his rebounds line, which is 12.5. I would take the over on his rebounds in game 1 versus the Lakers, I believe, who they play tonight. You can do all that more at prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege or use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for a first-time deposit match of $100. So you put in 100, you get 100 back. That's 200 in your account over at prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, Gophers fans, we're wrapping this one up with a little bit of talk about the running back room because we saw Zach Evans get injured in that last game early in the first half of the Iowa game after he was really kicking it off. I believe he had about 10 rushes for 44 yards, 4.4 yards a carry. He had the wiggle to him and he was getting it going. And they slowly ramped Darius Taylor into this game. But once Zach Evans went down, plus we found out prior to the game that Bryce Williams is out for the remainder of the season. So first of all, I want to take a time, shout out, show love to Bryce Williams because he is a senior. This was his final year of eligibility. And I've got nothing but appreciation for him and what he's done for this running back room, bringing that veteran presence, showing up when players go down, and being a staple for the team. So hopefully he'll continue to give that leadership to these young guys throughout this season, even though he is injured. But shout out to him, respect to him. And then you've got now this Zach Evans injury on top of it that makes this running back room a little bit shallow coming in. You've got Darius Taylor and Sean Tyler, but Darius Taylor is a big question because he got it more involved in this game. He made a huge critical catch, and then he runs up the sideline boundary, toe taps in, tightrope, walks in, gets the first down, a huge one for the Gophers in the fourth quarter. But I don't believe we saw him again after this. And in that media room yesterday, people were trying to take a look at the replay. And it looked like maybe he grabbed at his left hamstring. But, I mean, again, that's all speculation. But we didn't see him again after that play, which begs the question, did he get injured again or tweak something? Because that would be devastating for this running back room. So that means next up would be Sean Tyler, plain and simple, the transfer who's coming in. He hasn't found a lot of success yet, but he might need to have a ton of touches in this next one to keep things going. What's beyond that? What is beyond that for the Gophers? Well, the first thing is first, you got Jordan Newman, who is a steady hand. He showed great in fall camp. He looked confident. He looked nice. I have faith in Jordan Newman being a nice addition or a spell back in this offense if it calls for it, if it needs be. I think he will step up and show that he can be a sturdy back for this room. But the upside of this room takes a huge hit if Zach Evans and Darius Taylor can't play. And you need the running game clearly because they haven't been taking a lot of opportunities in the passing game. So either you're going to have a team that's going to be forced to pass the ball more, whether they like it or not in these next couple games, which could be good for Ethan Kaliak-Mattis' development, or you're going to have a team that maybe doesn't have a lot of extended drives and all of a sudden you're playing like an Iowa, relying on your defense and special teams to try and get victories. I don't know if this Minnesota team is built to handle that. The defense stepped up last week. Hopefully they can keep that going, but you're going to need production in the ground game. So whether that's Sean Tyler and Jordan Newman playing out of their minds, or hopefully one of these younger backs are okay and ready to play. Coach Fleck said in the presser yesterday that they did receive some good news on the when asked about his running back room and the injuries in there. So hopefully that means one of Darius Taylor or Zach Evans will be okay to play this week and can get involved. That was one question I kind of had itching in the back of my head, is with Darius Taylor's injury, if he tweaked something, I don't know if he's injured or not right now, but he didn't come back into the game in the critical moments. So that's what leads you to believe maybe something happened. But even if it was just a small tweak or a small, like something was uncomfortable, PJ Fleck would absolutely protect his player in that situation, knowing he's coming back from injuries, knowing Zach Evans just went down, knowing they don't have Bryce Williams for the year. If something even felt slightly off, my inclination would be Coach Fleck would be like, look, sit down. This game is fourth quarter. We'll figure out a way to get it done. We need you for the remainder of the season. So that's maybe why we didn't see Darius Taylor as much in that fourth quarter after that tightrope play. So hopefully that's the case. Hopefully we will see him healthy and feeling great this weekend against Michigan State, a team that he is from Michigan. So I'm sure he would love to get it done against that team and maybe with some extra family members in the crowd. We'll find out this weekend, but as always, stay tuned here at Locked On Golden Gophers. We'll have a crossover show with the host of Locked On Spartans, as well as our predictions with Tristyn Spann-Ford this week and more. Be sure to hit subscribe over on YouTube, and as always, roll the boat, Skyima, go Gophers, and don't forget to subscribe.